Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Paradise. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Paradise, a Wastepunk board game by Mindwork Games. Now, as you can see, I'm not holding a box. I do not currently have a box in front of me because this is a crowdfunding campaign and also a prototype copy in front of me, so all rules, components, and things like that are subject to change, but thank you to Mindwork Games for sponsoring this video. And you can check out the campaign link down below because they do have a beautiful box art cover designed and all of that. I just don't have it here right in front of me, but what I do have in front of me is a whole lot of miniatures. So Paradise is going to be a game where you are in a Wastepunk, I think that's actually correct, but it's a wasteland that is punk style, where it's post-apocalyptic. Everything is gone, you're scavenging for everything, and everyone is pretty brutal. So what do? We try to fight and kill all of the other clans. And you're going to be doing that with these really beautifully sculpted miniatures. There's also terrain and things like that, and they also encourage using your own terrain if you like, as long as it fits in with all the parameters that it needs to fit on this board and when it's placed when it needs to at the beginning. So with that, we're going to jump into how to play Paradise, because it is going to be a miniatures heavy game, but it's also going to have a ton of strategy. So it's going to be one of those games which is pretty easy to learn because there's only a few base actions, but a lot of the strategy is really going to be with how you have all of these different characters working together with their special abilities, because players are going to take turns going back and forth activating them, and just depending on how you layer all of your actions and how you choose to use everyone to your disposal, because they are all disposable, it can be very, very strategic. So with that, we're going to jump into Paradise. Now, in front of you, you can see the general game board, and there are a whole bunch of scenarios that you are able to set up. So when you set up a different scenario, it will tell you exactly where to put certain things, and those are going to be the objectives that players are trying to accomplish throughout the game. So you do gain victory points when people are KOed. You actually gain them when they try to revive them back, but you also can gain victory points from the different scenarios. So depending on what you're playing, you may have different things and different objectives that you're trying to hit to try to gain victory points, such as, you know, being able to have the most miniatures around someone without other miniatures near it and things like that. Now, on top of that, I just want to note that I do have this team over here. This is the crew of the Slug Lords. Usually you're playing two teams against each other, so here's the crew of the Raiders, but for the sake of you being able to see everything, I only have one visible. So I will be showing you these guys when I'm talking about the statistics and things like that, but I just wanted to show you that normally the board is not set up with these on the side. Normally each player is playing across from each other, just like I'm sitting now. I would be sitting on this side, and I would have all of these cards placed in front of me instead. So that's really important because that's where you start spawning your different people, and that's just where you have all of your cards placed. But the sides are actually the sides between you and I, and not the sides between left and right here on the board. I just wanted to make sure that was super clear before we dive into anything else. So you can see that when you have your different teams, you have a crew of different people, and they all do different things and have special abilities, but they also look very, very different. So you have your general grunts, which is the crew of the Slug Lords up top, but then after that you have all different units. Now, they are going to have special things that they can do, but they also have variable statistics, which I'll go over soon. Now, before I dive into the actions of the game and what your different character cards look like, I just want to explain a little bit more about the board. So something that's going to be extremely unique to this game is that you are using these different rulers to move along the board. So you have a 3, a 2, and a 1, and those are going to designate the different movements that you are able to do around the different areas. Now, you are going to have terrain that's going to interrupt you, and you are able to move through other characters, but you cannot land overlapping with them or anything like that. But as you can see here, this character's movement is a 2, meaning that they would be able to use this to move around the board. Now, something else that is very, very cool is you might see that we have a shooter up here in this water tower. You are also able to climb. Now, there are specific climbing rules where you need to be able to get into that area, but you're going to be doing so all with these different rulers that are available. Now, as I noted, there are multiple ways to get victory points, but the game end is going to be triggered when a player reaches 20 victory points. So that round will still continue, and at the end of that round, whoever has the most victory points will be the winner of that particular game. Now, with their characters, players may have special actions, so we'll go over those way in the future of this video, but You're also going to have your 3 basic actions. So you're going to be able to have movement, focus, and attack. However, one of your 2 actions for each miniature that you activate is going to have to be movement or focus. So movement is when you are using these, and your characters are going to have their own movement value for how far they can go, and you can choose to move twice if you want to, or you can move and attack, or if you are already up against someone that you want to attack, or you have a ranged weapon that you are able to reach them, then you can choose to focus and then attack, and focusing is going to add 2 extra dice to your attack roll, so that's going to make it even stronger. So I did note what moving looks like, and if you do need to, you are able to break down your movement as well. So if you're trying to like go around something that you're not climbing over but you kind of want to maneuver, you are able to like take a 2 and use 2 1s instead, things like that. So there's a lot of clever ways for you to be able to manipulate your movement depending on what you're trying to do, but then players are going to be able to attack. So as I said, you have your melee attacks and your ranged attacks, and you're just going to have different dice that you allocate for your dice pool depending on what you're doing. You also are going to have different weapons, which I'll get into how you gain those in a little bit, but with those different weapons, you can either have something that allows you to do additional damage either for your ranged or melee attack, but it has to be for that specific type of attack. So with that, players are going to determine how many dice they're able to roll, and if they focused, they get even more, and then they're going to roll these dice. Now, the die are going to have 1 skull, 2 skulls, a little exclamation point, and a flat side with nothing. So as you can, I'm sure, infer, 1 skull is 1 success, 2 skulls is 2 successes. However, the exclamation point is sometimes a trigger that will happen to the person that was rolling those dice. Now, obviously, a blank is nothing, and that stinks, but then after that, the defending player will also have a defense roll. So all of these character cards also have a defense value, and if they have anything, again, as items that could add to that, they might add to that roll, but then they will roll against that. Then you'll take the successes of each and, subtract from them to see how much damage is dealt. So if the defender is able to defend completely, that's great, but if you, for example, if the attacker rolled 6 successes and the defender only rolled 3, then they would take 3 damage. Now, if that's enough to knock you out, that character is also knocked out. When that happens, the character does actually stay on the board, and they take a KO token, and they have a KO value. So, for example, this character's KO value is 3, meaning that when this team decides to resurrect and respawn and bring this guy back to life, the other team is going to gain 3 victory points. Now, just to give you a little bit closer of an example of what I mean, this is going to be the general grunts for the crew of raiders, but they're able to move at a 2, which is going to be this. They're able to roll 3 dice for a ranged attack, 2 for a melee attack, they roll 2 defense, and they also only have 2 health, but they only cost 1 victory point to be able to revive once they're KO'd. So there is that, but as you can see, here is another character where their statistics are a bit stronger. So they do have 2 movement, they have a 3 for their dice pool for either ranged or melee, but they have a 5 defense and a 5 health, making them a whole lot stronger. But they are also 3 KO points, meaning that if they die and you want to bring them back to life, it's going to cost you a lot to be able to do so. So now you can see that they also have some special things on their board. For example, this one is a gun, and it has a range of 2, and it adds +2 dice. So on this turn, if this character was to use that, they would have 3 dice from their ranged attack, +2 for using the gun, and they could even have an additional 2 if they focus that turn. Now there's also mechanical arm, because this character actually has a mechanical arm, and that is going to be, you're able to do the melee +4, so it adds 4 to that for you. Now, for that particular attack, that's when one of the trigger abilities might come into play. It has that symbol below it. And it says, on that result, you may move the target 1 and make a gun attack against it. So that's something that you're able to do additionally if you're able to roll that. Now, you can also see that they have abilities here, so I'm just going to go through this character so that you can understand a little bit. But they have Run and Punch, cost 1 action, take a 2 movement followed by a melee attack. So that's a way for you to be able to move and then also have a melee attack. There's also a push away. Choose an opponent within melee range and move them 1. So you're able to push someone that's very close to you. There's also a box skill, which is against a melee attack. These will count as a double success, so that makes you a whole lot stronger when melee attacking, that you're able to have additional successes. And then additionally, the crew ability is at the end of Noah Reed's activation, add one crew of Raiders member within one of her. So you're able to add even more people because she's just so cool. Now that is a whole lot about how to play the game, but the pace of play is going to be that players are activating one miniature at a time on their team, and then the other player will take a turn activating a miniature, and players will go back and forth throughout that particular round until all of the miniatures that are not KO'd are activated. So you're able to activate anyone that is able to, and depending on how you choose to move those around can be very, very important. Now, at the end of that round is when you check for your different victory conditions, and then at the beginning of the next round is when you're able to revive any of those KO'd people that you want to bring back into the fray, because they were just so powerful for you. So that's going to be the general back and forth, is that you're going to be activating all your miniatures, trying to do as much as you can between killing everyone else as well as meeting the scenario objectives, and then trying to revive anyone you can when you need to. Now, I did mention weapons, and I'm going to show you a couple different things, but there is a deck of cards, and it's called the Stratagems. Now, these are going to be drafted at the beginning of the game, and players are going to end up with 6 of them by the start of the game. So some of them are going to be weapons that you will slot into your different characters at the beginning, but others are going to be ones that you are able to play situationally. So I'm just going to go through a few, and we'll stop when we get to the gun. So we have here a motorbike. Play this card at the beginning of the game. One of your characters immediately moves 3 and cannot climb this way. So that's a way for you to immediately, before the beginning of the game, move someone very quickly somewhere very far, which can be great if you're the first player. Now we also have here Earthquake. You can play this card at the beginning of the round. For this round, the maximum movement of any model is 1 and they can't climb terrain. So this is just the 1, and this is really, really great whether you are close to an objective that is on the board and you don't want anyone moving closer, or if you have a lot of ranged attacks and you know that they have a couple of melee people coming, that you may try to plan for this, but that's really great. Now we also have Fast Recover. You can play this card during your turn. Immediately stand up one of your characters, paying the normal VP cost. So you do still have to pay to revive them, but this is a way for you to revive someone literally mid-round and really surprise someone. Now, here is a shotgun, which I wanted to show off to you guys. If the target is within 1, add 2 dice to the attack roll. So this gun itself shows how you would add dice to the attack roll, but here is the range, which is going to be 2, and then it has plus 4 dice for the attack roll, but it does come in with 2 ammo. Now, ammo are going to be tokens that you will put on that weapon when you slot it to a particular character. So if you decide you want this character to have the shotgun, you'll start off with those 2 different ammo on it, and as you use it, the ammo is spent. So you only are able to use that a certain number of times because it is pretty cool. But yeah, that is how the different weapons are going to work for you. Now, there are other conditions that can happen to the different characters as well. For example, there is fire and gas, and these are going to behave similarly but different, where fire at the end of each round, you're able to roll to get rid of it, but if you don't, you're going to take damage. Whereas gas, you are also able to try to roll to get rid of it, but if you are not able to, the other player is able to move you within 1. So that can be very, very detrimental because they can move you somewhere you might not want to be, and they can even move you away from the objectives. Paradise is going to be one of those games with a ton of replayability because you do have all of the different scenarios that you are able to set up and play when you choose to, but you also have the different factions that you're able to even swap with the person that you were playing with and play as the other side instead. So even when you sit down to play and have something set up, you can even choose to play it twice if you want to see who could come out on top with which faction and which one is better, because they are highly asymmetric and they have such different abilities that that's really where the strategy of the game comes from, is the different abilities that you are able to use and the stratagems that you draft at the beginning of the game and how you are able to combo those with the different teams that you have. It can be very, very cool, and you can set up some pretty cool turns. Now, this is also going to be very fast-paced, so you're going to be playing through, and even if the game takes a bit longer, it can take 25 minutes to an hour, but even if it does, it can be very, very fast-paced because your minions are, your characters are currently dying, so are constantly dying, so they're always going into battle, they're dying, you're reviving them, you're trying to decide if it's worth reviving them because it's going to cost you victory points to your opponent. So it is very quick where you start seeing the slaughter immediately in this post-apocalyptic world. So if you'd like to check out more, you can see the GameFound campaign link down below for everything that they have planned. This has been by Mindwork Games. I've been Professor Meg, and I will see you all next time. Bye!